What's up guys? Rob Optimal Body, sponsored by Damn Fitness. Now, previous videos we've spoke about diets and how to manipulate them for optimal fat loss, health, muscle building, muscle maintenance, but mainly around fat loss and keeping hold of muscle. And then one of our videos was what to do when you become into one of these sticking points of your diet. So you might hit a plateau, and it's completely normal, happens to all of us. You come along these, might go a few weeks and lose weight, and then you hit a plateau. So we went on how to deal with those things and my top tips on how to overcome those plateaus, mostly regarding for fat loss. Now, what happens when you hit plateaus when you're trying to get maximum muscle mass? So there's loads of guys and even girls, which is great, that are in the gym and just wanting to build muscle. They're wanting to look good, look more powerful and stronger. They might want to compete. They might do strongman, powerlifting, bodybuilding, anything like that, or they might just want to look better. So this is aimed at how to build muscle, but what to do when it hits a plateau, which often happens. We get to these sticking points, and this is aimed at people that have been training perhaps at least a year or a few years, and they've got solid nutrition, sleep, rest, stress levels are good. You know, those sort of things that where you feel like you've put everything in place, yet you still can't overcome that barrier, and you want to unlock those new gains, put more pounds on the scales to build decent quality muscle. So it's not just for, this isn't for people that have just been training a few weeks or a few months and feel they've hit a sticking point, or for people that haven't manipulated all of our aspects that we spoke of. So this for if you think you've got everything else on track. And I think it's quite a handy little tip, and it's just a theory, but there's a lot of studies behind it that seem to be backing it up as well. So we'll go to the whiteboard. Hopefully you'll be able to see. Okay, so as you see from the top, might be a bit confusing, but rest equals growth, and we'll talk about that as we go through and more towards the end. So first part are going to be some sort of problems that we can overcome, that we come across when we're training. So how does your muscle grow? Now the main theories are muscular tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage. And it's seeming like muscle damage is a really big one that comes up all the time when I've researched it, and it makes sense as we get really sore after training. It's like a minor injury to the fibres. So muscle damage equals muscle growth, which makes sense. The body has to respond by building a bigger, stronger muscle to overcome the task again of lifting this heavy weight that it's failed at when you go to failure. Now, how does it do this? Don't want to get too much into the science behind it, but for people that like that sort of thing, it does it via something called satellite cells. So when you get a stimulus from the muscle, so you get some tension in the muscle or some damage to the muscle. Now this triggers things like IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, growth hormone, testosterone, which activate things called satellite cells, which basically they donate their myonuclei, which is a type of nucleus. So they come into the muscle, donate this myonuclei, and this triggers muscle growth. So that's the basic science behind it. But basically, to sum it up, it's you train, you damage your muscle, and that leads to some sort of muscle growth, protein synthesis. Now, that sounds great. So we go in the gym again, train the muscle, we're aiming at damaging it again with a heavier weight, we're getting stronger, and then the cycle carries on. So what happens? Why do we hit these plateaus and we're increasing our nutrition and everything else seems to be on point, but we can't get over these plateaus? Now, again, growing muscle and building muscle is like, it's a survival mechanism to overcome this task that it's failed at. But the muscle also becomes less hard to damage, basically. So, and this is called the repeated bout effect, so the RBE. And what that means is the muscle builds up a protective mechanism that stops it from being susceptible to damage again, which makes sense. You don't want a bigger, stronger muscle that's just as easy to damage. So it's sort of like a catch-22. So what can we do? So this myonuclear domain theory. So basically that means that we spoke of, these satellite cells that bring in their nucleus to tell the muscle to grow. Now the nucleus can only oversee a certain amount of your muscle fibres. So you've got thousands of muscle fibres that complete a full muscle, and then there's nucleus dotted all about the muscle fibres. So they can only oversee a certain amount. So as the muscle grows, unless the myonuclei grows as well, then you're going to hit this point called your plateau, and that's because of this myonuclear domain theory. you haven't got enough myonuclei to oversee all this muscle damage, so you need to produce more to be able to keep growing. So how do we produce more? And that goes back to damage. So when the muscle gets damaged, it produces more myonuclei to deal with the extra muscle, and then you can get extra growth. Great. But back to the repeated bout effect, the muscle becomes harder to damage. So if you can't damage it, you can't produce more myonuclei, and then we can't produce more growth. So what's the way around this? I've come up with 3 solutions that I think are really good and that I've tried and tested and seen friends and clients and throughout the research that people have done to unlock new gains. Now, number 1 is very simple. You're just going to increase the volume. That could be more sets, more reps, or increasing the weight. So basically, this is going to lead to more muscle damage. So you're doing more in the gym, which makes sense. Your muscles only adapted to do a certain amount. So you might add an extra set. You might do, instead of doing 8 reps of the same weight, you might do 10 or 12, building up to that. And then you might, or if you're getting 12 of it, you might increase the weight. So it's this progressive overload that has to occur to create a new stimulus to cause the muscle more damage, which can create more myonuclei, which creates more growth, if that makes sense. Now, there can be a problem with this, which is also the same problem with number 2. So you can try that, great. So what you can do is you try that for a few weeks, maybe 6 to 8 weeks of increasing this overload, and then you can back off and do it again. So as you back off, the repeated bout effect, as the muscle becomes harder to damage, that starts to go down. So when you up the volume again, you can boost it back up. So you can't just do if you do loads of work all the time, you can't say you do 4 sets one week, then 5, then 6, then 7, then 8, then 9, then 10. So all of a sudden you're going to be doing ridiculous amount of sets, and how long is that going to take? It's going to be like a part-time job. So you can't always just stick to point number 1, because eventually you're going to run out of steam. You're not going to be able to complete that amount of work. And say you do it for a chest and bicep workout, something like that. If you do it for that, all that work, you end up spending hours in the gym. The next day when you might be having to train your legs, you're going to be really tired. It's going to be a central nervous system overload, which I've spoke of here. So you aren't doing too much. So what else could you do instead? Eccentric contractions. That's where the muscle is lengthening. So if you do a bicep curl, you lower the weight. That's where the muscle lengthens, and usually when you're lowering the weight. That creates a lot of tension and pulling of the fibres and overstretching of the muscle, which causes the damage. Great. Damage equals growth. So that can be something you can add in. You can add some specific eccentric contractions. So say you're doing something like a bench press. You're doing a bench press, and then on your last set you might get a spotter. You might increase the weight by maybe 10 or 20 kilograms, something like that. You'll have the spotter help you off of it. You'll lower the weight, maybe 4 or 5 seconds on the way down, and then you can just gonna try and get it up as much as you can, but the spotter will have to help you because you've increased the weight more than you're capable of. But you're just trying to overload that eccentric, that lowering portion of the rep, which is where the damage is shown to occur in the research. So again, damage equals growth. Brilliant. But again, it can be very stressful, very taxing on your nervous system, this sort of training, and it's something you've added to your training, so it's an extra stress. So you can't just continue to add this extra weight over the weeks, as you need to back off. So if you're doing number 1 or 2, I'd recommend adding just one of them, not both of them, into your program. So you add it in. I'd recommend doing that for around 6 to 8 weeks, and then go back to what you were doing before. So you might back off. You might have got up to 6 or 7 sets. You back off to 3 or 4, or you just do 6 to 8 weeks of not doing eccentrics, then 6 to 8 of doing it. So the way you're backing off, don't see it as resting. It's where this repeated bout effect is lowering, so the muscle can be damaged when you go back and hit it again. Now to me that sounds a bit complicated, going back and forth doing all this, but it's great because you get to stay in the gym, and that can be really good for someone that wants to always be in the gym and they feel like they need to be doing something. Great, not a problem. It's hard to rest, and that's my point number 3, which is I think it's the main thing. Rest equals growth. So simply by taking 1 or 2 weeks off the gym, it might sound counterintuitive, but by taking 1 to 2 weeks off the gym, you've reduced the repeated bout effect, so the muscle becomes harder to muscle becomes easier to damage as that lowers. So you take 1 or 2 weeks away from the gym. Studies show it takes about 2 to 4 weeks to actually notice any noticeable strength or decrease in muscle. So you're not going to lose size in 2 to 4 weeks, just like you're not going to gain loads of muscle in that time. It takes time. So don't worry about, 1 or 2 weeks off the gym, you're not going to lose size. So don't worry about that. Then 1 or 2 weeks off, you've lost this repeated bout effect, or you've significantly lowered it, and then you hit the gym again. Go back to just what you were previously doing. So you're probably going to failure. You might be using 2 or 3 sets, depending on your program, but just go back to the same program, keep everything similar, lift till failure, and then the muscle become damaged again. That increases myonuclei, and that causes muscle growth, because the muscle's susceptible to damage again. So that's basically what we're trying to do. We're trying to reduce this repeated bout effect by using 1, 2, or 3 of these solutions, and only use one at a time. So you 0.1, 0.2, or 0.3. For me, I try 0.3, as it just seems very simple, and you can fit it in with perhaps a holiday, or just perhaps you're feeling really tired and give your body a rest for a week, or you've got a really busy schedule and you don't think you're going to make it in the gym. Just have the complete week off, stick to your nutrition the best you can, and go back and hit it hard, knowing that the muscle's going to be easier to damage and then easier to grow. So I hope that makes sense. The main point of the video is to either decrease your training for a period of weeks, then increase it, then go back and forth, or to add some eccentric contractions to allow the muscle to be under load by a lot more weight, because you can handle more weight on the eccentric, but that's where the damage occurs. Or to take a complete rest week, and then when you get back into it, you can really hit it hard. Might take a couple of weeks for your strength to go back up. Doesn't mean you've lost muscle, it just means your nervous system's slightly down-regulated slightly, so it can take a while for your strength to come back up, but it soon happens, and a good sign that this is working is that when you go back to it, you might be perhaps you're deadlifting 100 kilogram for 10 reps, just an example. You do that again. Normally you do that and you might not be very sore after you've done that for a number of weeks. Go back and do it. You seem to be very sore for a lot of days, so you get this DOMS effect, so that's a good sign that the muscle's been damaged. Even though it's the same weight, it's been damaged by that, and that's a good sign that you've got rid of this repeated bout effect and the muscle can grow and you can add more myonuclei to the muscle. So with the rest periods, I'd recommend probably do 6 to 8 weeks of a hard hitting program. Make sure you're really going for it. You can't just, if you're doing these rest times, these rest weeks, you need to really smash it when you're actually in the gym. So I'd do 6 to 8 weeks, take a week off, 6 to 8 weeks, take a week off. Do that sort of fashion, see what results you get. Drop me a message, I'd be very interested to see how people are getting on, or any further information about their specific program, what they should be doing, and give it a try. This is just if you've hit a plateau and it's worth a try, and what's the worst that can happen? You might lose a little bit of strength, but it's showing that you're not going to lose any muscle, and you can get that muscle back very quickly and even more muscle. Okay, so please like and share my page. Thanks for listening, guys. Cheers.